Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. The name of the channel is KG Games. That's also the name of my little one-man indie dev studio. So last week I posted a video, a bit of a time-lapse video where I was showing you how to model a simple F1 car tire. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna go step by step and try to show you how to do what I basically did last week. So yeah, let's go. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and open Blender. And what we're gonna start with is just deleting this cube that you have there. And now we're just gonna add a reference image. So what I'm gonna do, just gonna add it as a background image. I already have a couple of these, so let's go with the SS. We load it, and then there you go. If you basically go into orthographic view, you can just see a reference image there, depending on what view you were in when you actually added it. As you can see, it's not really centered properly, but all of that you can fix afterwards. So the process of modeling a wheel is very simple. So what I'm gonna start with is I'm just gonna add a circle. So we add a circle, and then here you can basically edit how many points your circle should have. So the default value is 32 vertices, like you see here. So I'm just gonna leave it as that, and then we rotate. Okay, we go to the front view, we rotate it by 90 degrees, and yeah, you have your circle there. Do a bit of resizing, and we just make sure that it matches up there, and that's fine. And then if you press E, it's basically gonna extrude your circle, because remember it was just a single line. So what you've done by pressing E is you extruding it and forming sort of a surface. And how that surface is gonna move, you can control by either pressing S to scale it inwards and outwards, or you can just press R if you want to rotate it. So we're just gonna be using S to scale it inwards, and just try to match the brim of the tire there. And then we press E again to scale, to extrude, and then we scale again. We go in about here, then press E again, you scale, and then you go into about there. Yeah, I think this is where your tire should end up. And then if you press tab, you get out of edit mode, and you'll see that all you have is just a flat disc, which isn't necessarily what you're looking for. But yeah, if you press Z, you can kind of toggle between the different view modes. So if you go into wireframe, this allows us to actually see the background. So what I'm gonna do is go into edit mode, and then in order to make this look like an actual tire, I'm gonna go into edge selection mode, select these two edges, and then select these two, and then go to mesh. Do you go to mesh? No, you go to select, and then you select edge loops. That's, yeah, select loops, edge loops, and then yeah, it basically selects all your edges going around. And then if you toggle it back into vertex mode, you've basically selected all these faces that will make the sidewall of your tire. And if you look at it in the front view, you'll see you still have a flat plane. So what you can do is you can just drag it out to however you want, and then you go back into your side view, go back into object mode, and you'll see that it kinda is getting there, but it doesn't really look like an actual tire. So what we can do is we go back into edge mode, we select these inner edges, go to select edge loop, and we can basically drag these other edges out a bit to try and make our tire look as realistic as we possibly can. If you go into object mode, let's just press Z and go into solid. So yeah, this is what our tire looks like for the time being. So what we're basically doing is we're modeling half a tire. So what we can do is we use modifiers to kind of, what you want to do is you modeling one side of the tire and the other half of the tire will just be created for you. So you use a mirror modifier, it's mirrored along the x-axis. So whatever you do on the one side will just be mirrored across. So that's a nice feature about Blender. And then if we just right click here and we shade smooth, we see that we're starting to have something that kind of looks like a tire somewhat. But if you look at the front view, obviously it doesn't really look like a tire. So what we can do about that is we go into edit mode, we switch to wireframe, and then if you just select a loop cut here, it allows you to create vertices along whichever plane you choose. So if we just select here and we drag it across, and we just basically select the move control here, and we resize it a bit, scale. Actually, let's go to the front view. If we resize this a bit, it starts to kind of look like an actual tire. We can actually have it become almost flat, but I don't want to do that. Yeah, so if we go back into object mode, leave it solid. So yeah, see, you have something that kind of resembles a car tire. But now if we go ahead and render this, you'll realize that there's basically nothing happening here. It's just a white surface, not much really going on there. Excuse me. There's not much going on there. So even if we were to create a new material for this, and we call the material maybe tire underscore matte, and we make it a bit darker, and then we try and go into material preview. Look, it kind of looks like a tire, but it's still just a black surface. It doesn't really look like a proper F1 tire. So that's when we go into UV mapping. So yeah, with UV mapping, that's when we take a 2D texture and we try and apply it to the 3D object so that it kind of resembles a real life object. So I'm gonna be using the same texture that I used as our reference image, the same tire image that I used. So what you basically do in this instance is you select your object and you go into edit mode, select all your vertices, and then if you press U, you can basically unwrap your 3D object and say, okay, this is the projection that I want onto my texture. So if I press U and I say project from view bounds, and we go into UV editing, you'll see that all the vertices are basically mapped onto just an empty image. So that's where we now have to add the image that we trying to map onto. So I've gone ahead and selected the same reference image. So I've gone ahead and selected the same reference image. But again, if we go into material preview, you'll see that nothing still happens here. And that's fine. What we can do is we go into shading, because we haven't assigned a texture to this specific material. So you can go into shading and then add an image. Add an image texture there, and then you select the same texture we're using, and then you map the color to the base color, and voila, you basically have your texture mapped. So if we go back into UV editing, you'll see that, okay, so it's now looking a bit more like a real F1 tire. Just that the other side, because we used a mirror modifier, the other side of the wheel will have the texture flipped, hence why it doesn't say 0 on the side. Well, it says 0 on the one side and it says ORES on the other side. So there's a couple of ways you can get around that, but the simplest way I would say is to just get rid of the mirror modifier. So what I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna delete the mirror modifier. I'm just gonna select all the vertices, Shift D to duplicate everything. So what it does is that it just duplicates all your vertices with the textures mapped. And then what we can do is just go to the top view, rotate 180 degrees, and then just try and align it this way. So you'll see that now your textures are written the right way around for both sides of the wheel. So that's one way of doing it. Yeah, so that's one way of doing it. Yeah, I think this is pretty much okay. I don't know if maybe this mess that's happening here up top bothers you. I can maybe go into it in a later video, but for now I think this is a good enough model. I mean, if you're in a game situation and you're driving high speed cars, you're not really gonna be looking and zooming into your tires and looking, oh, but this here texture has this kind of texture here. But yeah, I think this is good enough. So I'll just go into top view, scale X0, and then I select all my vertices and I go into mesh, and then I merge all my vertices by distance. And what it basically does, it's that it just tries to look for any vertices that are close enough to each other and it merges them. So if I go into Z, go into material mode, and yeah, so this is basically how you model your F1 car tire. As you can see, it's kind of looks very simplistic. The vertex count is not that high, it's about 300 vertices. So if you have like 4 tires, you're looking at almost 1,000 vertices for your model, which is, I think, acceptable for a mobile gaming application. But yeah, so now if we were to try and render this now, we'd get something like this. But obviously you want to try and position your camera properly. Firstly, let's just try and get some grounding there. Let's just add a square to try and have a base for our scene. Scale that along Z. Okay, grab Z. Okay. Now if we want to adjust this camera and try to get it to align to the scene, we just press Ctrl Alt and 0, and it basically aligns your camera to your current view. So if you wanted to take it from this angle, you go to this angle, Ctrl Alt and 0, and your camera just aligns to that specific view. So yeah, this is the view that I like. I press F12 to render, and that's your F1 Tyre. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope this first tutorial is actually informative. Just let me know if there's anything I can improve. Let me know if there's any specific things you'd want me to look at in terms of Blender 3D modeling or Unity 3D. So I'm hoping this is the first of many videos in this series. So yeah, like and subscribe. KG out.